Hey everybody, Nickon here. Welcome to part 3 of Star Fox 64. I decided to stop saying hey guys because that's assuming that you're all boys and I don't want to be a sexist bastard. Anyway, we're going to Titania.
What are you doing? It's too dangerous there.
I can't leave Slippy hanging.
Good luck.
Deploy the Landmaster. Give me Slippy's location, Rob.
Life form indicated at 12 o'clock.
Welcome to Titania, guys. Welcome to Titania, guys. Welcome to Titania, folks. Oh wait, that sounds too cappy. Welcome to Titania, everybody. Yeah, that sounds alright.
A magnetic storm! We'll search here.
Titania is a desert planet on the fringe of Vandross's territory. This and Macbeth are basically the front lines of his space.
I think you look better in a tank. Why don't you come down here, Falco? I'll pass.
And yeah, in case you haven't noticed, we're in a tank. This is the Landmaster. It is one of 2 new gameplay styles that we'll be seeing in this video. I think the Landmaster is quite fun to use. I think it's pretty much perfect in Star Fox Zero. This version, while simpler and while it doesn't have the whole Gravmaster function, it's still incredibly satisfying to use. Its shots feel very powerful. Lots of these ships you can take down with just one shot. Like just one little blast could scratch them and they'll fall out of the sky, whereas they might take 3 or 4 hits if you were using the R-Wing. Even so, there is one thing that bugs me a little bit, and that there's no way to upgrade the laser. I mean, it's not really necessary, like I just said, this thing's already incredibly strong. But like in 2-player mode, you can collect a laser upgrade and then you've got 2 bullets, and they spin around in this double helix kind of pattern, and it's just so darn badass. I wish that they made it possible for you to do that in these stages. But who knows, maybe it might be a little overpowered then, I don't know. I think this stage is quite interesting. They remade it for Star Fox Zero, and yeah, I like that stage quite a lot. I like the enemies, I think it's a very fun stage. But in terms of the environment, I think this one is just a little more satisfying. I think it's a fair bit longer, and they managed to fill it with more hazards. It's like the one in Zero is a condensed version of this stage. And when you're using the, what is it? The Roadmaster, that extra little vehicle you can use in training mode. When you use that to race through this stage in like a minute and a half, you see just how ridiculously short it is compared to this one. And I'm not saying longer is better, but I'm okay with this stage being long because they actually managed to cram it full of lots of interesting enemy formations and land-based hazards, lots of new enemy types that you won't see in any other stage. Then again, it's just a very interesting level, so it's like even if you get to the knocked to the bottom path, it's like, oh no, I'm going to just play shitty levels from now on. No. This level is just fine. This level is fun. And it's just another one of those things that is very memorable about this game, especially when you see the boss. It is one of the craziest bosses in the game.
These guys just keep coming! Incoming! Don't be dead!
Location confirmed. Sending supplies.
I think the idea with stages like this is that the air defenses are just a little too thick for them to get through with the R-Wings alone. So I think the idea is that the Landmaster is supposed to sort of clear a path for the others above. But if they didn't have this, they might not be able to make it through this stretch. I don't know. But I don't mind, I think this level is a lot more interesting than it would be without the Landmaster. This is like the perfect sort of environment for such a thing. It's very harsh, it's a total wasteland. The environment, I think it looks, yeah, it is a little bland, but I like the coloration of it. I like that there's this thin red haze covering everything. It feels sort of like we're on Mars.
pull together just a bit further.
Ah! I'm hit!
Is that you, Slippy? I'll be there soon.
I like that everyone's so concerned about Slippy in this stage. They all panic just a little bit.
Slippy!
I knew you'd come help me.
Oh my fuck!
Let me get a piece of that action, Fox.
Behold the mighty Gorass! Yes, that is this creature's name. It's nothing too complex. It'll just swap you with its arms and its tail, and there's a few other attacks. You just gotta shoot at its arms, and then the organs in its open, exposed ribcage, and that's it. Considering it's shooting laser beams at us out of its claws, I don't think this is a creature that naturally formed in the wild, that evolved to be this way. Well, no, I take that back. We did see several skeletons along the way that looked just like this. I think Andros maybe captured a few of these creatures and weaponized them, turning them into cyborgs. Then maybe most of them died, and this is the only one that survived the experiments, so he just let it loose in the wild to take out whatever enemies of his were stupid enough to come here, like us. So yeah, I blasted off its arms. This fight is almost over. I would usually be done by now, but again, I wanted to give the boss a chance to show off some of its other moves. And yeah, it summons its arms back, I mean, some of its new arms. But you can take them all out with a bomb. That is so satisfying to do. I tried to finish it off by shooting a charge shot into his chest. That didn't quite go well. I just wanted to finish off in a way that looked cool, and well, you get the idea. A fun boss. Don't feel bad if you got stuck on this path. You can still have fun. And, I guess that's it.
All aircraft report.
I thought I was gone.
We're always saving your hide, Slip. I'm sure he's learned his lesson. When we get back, we'll head to Venom.
So the next level we'll be visiting is Sector Y. This is a pretty fun level. This is where you can go after beating the attack carrier.
Fox, we're under attack. Help us out here.
I'm on my way.
Good luck.
Back up the squadron. Somebody's gonna pay for all this.
Sector Y is a pretty fun stage. It's one of the stages they kind of brought back for Star Fox Zero. In that one, they have Sector Alpha, which is basically the same. It's just a space battle with Cornerian ships that can be destroyed. Although in that one, it's like it was really easy to save the ships because there was always one like enemy ship firing at them. Here, it's just lots and lots of missiles being sprayed, and it's like always just barely too many to take out. I've never been able to save all of these ships. But don't worry, it's not like you have to save the Cornerian ships in order to accomplish a mission here. You just have to beat the stage. So don't worry, there's no way to really be demoted to the other paths. It's like once you're here, you're gonna be safe for like this and the next stage. So just play normally and you'll be fine. Anyway, I want to talk about a couple things about like how Star Fox plays. One thing I really appreciate about Star Fox Zero is that it has a sort of stage select. Once you've beaten a stage, you can replay that stage as many times as you like. You don't have to start back from the beginning of the game. In this game, it's kind of like Shadow the Hedgehog, where yeah, you have to restart and go to Corneria to go down other pathways and visit other stages. There is no way to replay any one stage. I think the 3DS version might have introduced something like that. I don't know. You'll have to ask somebody else because I don't have that version. Though I really should get it sometime. I don't know why I haven't. I mean, I have a 3DS, but I barely have any games for it. Anyway, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, this is where the place splits, just like Sector X did. I'm gonna show the bottom pathway first, then the top pathway, because both have some really neat set pieces that I just really wanted to show off. I wanted to include every beautiful moment in this game. So anyway, on top of not having an option to just select stages, if you want to retry a stage, you lose a life. Okay, that's perfectly fine, I guess. It's just that lives are a little hard to come by here. I mean, once you've collected 3 rings in a level and extend your shield gauge, collecting 3 more rings will get you an extra life. And if you kill enough enemies by the end of the stage, you'll also get extra lives for that. So it's not like extra lives are hard to get in this game. But just the fact that if you reach the end of a stage, and let's say you want to try that again, because maybe you're not satisfied with your performance, maybe you want to try getting a few more hits, maybe you want to try unlocking one of the other pathways. Well, you lose a life by doing that. And they even play the sad music, like they're trying to make you feel bad for doing it. I know that's something that bugs a lot of people about this game. It is something that makes it kind of dated, but it's not that big of a problem for me, because it is a pretty darn short game. It's easy to come back to. Now I'm showing you the higher pathway, and I like this one better than the bottom pathway simply for this. Look at this. These giant spaceships just completely destroyed. All of the people that were in these ships are dead now. Because of they've been exposed to space. All the air's been sucked out. It is one of the dreariest places in the game, this graveyard. And apparently Peppy was wrong. Slippy did not learn his lesson. There he goes getting in trouble again. He flies too far ahead of us thinking he's all that, just like he did in Sector X, and up there you go, he's in trouble again. I don't think there's any way for him to die in that part though. Unless you shoot him down. Yeah, that's another thing that can happen in this game. If you shoot at your friends too many times, they'll have to retreat. So be careful. I do love though that you have moments like what we just saw, where Falco swooped in and took down one of those robots I'll talk about in a minute. And you're about to see a moment where all 3 of your teammates fly ahead and work together to take down some of the fighters ahead, and I just love that. I love that your teammates can actually have some effect on how things play out. That they can actually help you out and take down some more enemies for you. It's a nice system. It's pretty simple, it's pretty primitive, but it works well. Anyway, you may have noticed there's a bunch of Zaku-looking mother... I'm not even going to finish saying that. There's just a bunch of robots that look like big green monkeys. And that's basically all we're going to be fighting for the rest of the stage. I think they're called Sarus, they're also called Shoguns. We're now going to try 2 slightly stronger variants at the same time. These ones are pretty interesting. You fight them in all range mode, and they mostly attack by shooting at you or kicking at you. You fly right up to them, and they will swiftly do a roundhouse sideways kick. And it can be strong enough to clip one of your wings with one shot, so just be careful. Thankfully, they're pretty darn weak. I mean, if I was using the one normal green laser, it would take 4 times as long to take them down. Yeah, I'm a little overpowered here, so this fight's gonna be over pretty quickly. So we're not done yet?
Don't party just yet.
Behold, Saru Zin and the Shogun Warlord. The Shogun Warlord is the strongest of all the Shoguns, and this battle can last pretty long and be pretty tedious. If you take too long, he'll stand atop Saru Zin and fire you from there, but apparently I am too good for this game. And now we're coming up to another shot that I really like. I liked the one on Katana where you have all of Bill's squadron flying behind the R-Wings, but this one is probably even more badass. Just the scale of it, just look.
There you go.
All those Cornerian ships, this is just, oh man, it's just too badass.
I guess you're good for something.
It's just these guys look so small compared to those things in the background. Since there's no way to really fail in Sector Y, we're just gonna keep flying ahead to Aquas and then to Zonus, and then they're gonna start introducing the multiple pathways again and the ways to fail and stuff. This next stage is pretty interesting. We've already been introduced to a second gameplay style on Titania, the Landmaster, and there is one more Landmaster stage, but we're gonna see the game's third gameplay style, another thing that they introduced. Except this wasn't quite as well received as a Landmaster, so they never brought it back for any future games, but I like it quite a bit.
Star Fox, I want you to take out the enemy bioweapon.
Yes, sir. Deploy the Blue Marine.
Good luck.
I've been trying not to talk much during the cutscenes at the beginning of all these levels, but I gotta take a minute to say I love this cutscene. I love all these cutscenes, but I love the way this one in particular is shot. It's just beautiful. And yeah, I love this panning shot. I love the fish swimming by. These cutscenes are just so interesting. This entire game, it feels like a collection of episodes of some series like Thunderbirds, because, you know, the characters are very puppet-like. They got all these crazy situational vehicles. Great Fox is basically Thunderbird too. And here's something interesting. Yeah, we're in a submarine. Aquas and the Blue Marine get a pretty bad rep. People hate this stage. Like, they say this is the worst stage of Star Fox 64, but that really doesn't mean much to me since, well, to me, Star Fox 64 is such a great game that even the worst stage is still pretty darn good. I like the Blue Marine. I like the way it controls. It's basically just another R-Wing. It controls more like the R-Wing than the Landmaster does. You can still boost, you can still brake, you can still barrel roll, you fire lasers, all that stuff. It's just a little sluggish because, well, you're underwater and you gotta take those physics into account. Like, it makes sense. I don't understand why people have a problem with this, unless it's just, oh, they just should have known better than to have an underwater stage to begin with. I think, considering how crazy some of their other gimmicks and other playstyles they've tried to introduce to innovate with other games, considering how those have gone, I think the Blue Marine is pretty darn tame. You're still flying ahead on a rail, you know, on a track, like in any R-Wing stage. And I think it's a pretty interesting environment. It doesn't overstay its welcome. If they had 2 underwater stages, or if this one was twice as long, then yeah, I might get sick of it. But they were smart. They knew to just include it as a one-time special little thing, just to introduce a new, interesting idea for a level, you know, just something that's nice in small doses. Like, this thing plays perfectly fine, but just being underwater itself, you can't really do that much with it, like on Nintendo 64. Like, you won't go through a huge trench, you won't be attacked by giant sea scorpions, although all those things would be really cool, and that's why I wish they would bring the Blue Marine back for a future game. Because just think of the environments they could create with such a setup nowadays, with today's hardware. Anyway, another thing about the way that the Blue Marine plays. You can't charge your shots, and you can't fire bombs. But you have torpedoes, which are basically bombs that behave like charge shots, and for a guy like me who's obsessed with getting hits in these games, that's just fine by me. So, they're like charge shots that you don't have to charge. You just fire them at an enemy, and any other enemy that is caught in the blast radius will add to your hit tally. They're very satisfying to use, and I like how in this stage, you're not fighting robots or enemy fighters or whatever, you're just fighting mutant sea creatures. I love how they fall apart in big meaty chunks, and you see their greenish blood going everywhere. It's very visceral and, like, more violent than these games usually are. You got, like, giant anglerfish. This stage is very dark because you're going deeper and deeper underwater the whole way. Like you saw at the start, we weren't that deep, and you can see the surface. But you're like, even right at the end of the stage, even that far in, if you tilt high enough, you can still see the surface way up in the distance. It's just that, you know, we're going along the ocean floor and it's getting deeper and darker as we go in. I mean, these horseshoe crabs. It's so creative the way they used all these enemies. So anyway, yeah, this level has a lot of hazards. It is pretty slow. For some people, it is a bit of a pain, but I think it's just short enough and just unique enough that it stands out without overstaying its welcome. I think it's perfectly painless. In fact, I'd say it's just as good as any other stage in this game. It just tries something different, and they didn't totally fuck it up. You know, they just wanted to have a third gameplay style, and instead of something like a helicopter that, I mean, I don't mind the gyro wing, but if I had to choose between the gyro wing and a new Aquas, like Blue Marine stage, I would have chosen this. Anyway, there's not much else to say about this stage. You can use the torpedoes to light your way. Just keep an eye out for hazards and for other enemies. Use torpedoes whenever you can, because they'll follow enemies around. They are extremely handy. They have like multiple uses. It's just, they kind of built this stage around the torpedoes. Some people aren't going to like this stage just because it is such a big departure from everything else we've seen so far, but I think it's perfectly fine. I think it's on par with the Landmaster in terms of fitting in with the whole Star Fox theme. And it's just so cool to me that it's like, these guys can go anywhere. They have a vehicle for every situation. Like, they are like the Thunderbirds and the Muppets fused together. And just like that, we're already at the boss. Sail ode to Bakun. Oh, and look, there's the ocean surface, just like I was saying. He has barnacles on his back that are apparently home to these creatures. It's like a symbiotic relationship. You know how sometimes a hermit crab and another fish will work together and share a cave together. Yeah, this is a pretty interesting boss. It's just like a giant clam, really? But they somehow managed to make it kind of scary. You're in complete darkness. The music is pretty tense. The enemy doesn't even like express itself in any real way. It just has these giant eyes and it's ugly as hell. Anyway, it's a pretty simple boss. I usually like to take out the barnacles first, and then you just take out the columns, one at a time. I like that when it closes after you destroy the first column, it's like it's at an angle. It's very lopsided. That's a nice touch. It's a pretty destructible boss, pretty gory, and again, it's just something different. I also forgot to comment on the music of Aquas. I think it's a beautiful theme, one of my favorite pieces of music in the game. It just feels kind of tragic, like why didn't they do this again in another game? So after you get rid of its shell, you can also take out these, I don't even know what to call them, these organic cannons, though they will respawn after a while. But it's a good way to give yourself a clear shot to take out the eyes. Like, you gotta get rid of the head meat, and then the main eye in the center, that's its weak spot. I think it's a good idea to launch like a second torpedo like just before the first one is going to destroy the outer casing, and then hopefully it will hit the eye immediately after, before any of the enemy's bubbles can block it. And that's it, we beat Bakun. So that was a pretty fun part. I like this stage quite a bit.
We're preparing to dock.
This stage gets a bad rep, but I think it's perfectly fine.
Thanks, Flip. Blue Marine came through.
Flip is not such a screw up after all.
Thanks a lot, Peppy.
I'll take the sky any day.
Peace, Falco. You too.
And just look at this thing's design, it's so cool. Fun fact, the Blue Marine makes an appearance in a recent Steel Diver game. I think it's like DLC and you can play it in the multiplayer. I don't know, I'm not that familiar with the game, but I've seen screenshots of what the Blue Marine looks like in that game, and it looks great. And it's just nice to see that, at least in some other games, the Blue Marine gets some love, even if it's not in an actual Star Fox game. And that's it for part 3. Next time we go to Zonus, and this is where things get really depressing.